Last Thursday, Mr. Pandaria Remix launched. And besides having just a few disconnection issues and being like having to wait 10 minutes before like actually being able to get in, I decided to make a Blood Death night and just jump right into Mr. Pandaria. Honestly, I didn't really have any big expectations going into Mr. Pandaria, the remix. The only one I had was that it was going to give us it was going to be a great way to like level up new characters and getting them ready for the War Within. And since I was like thinking about maybe changing servers, this would be a great opportunity to just level like all the tanks on the new server instead of like actually having to spend real life money on it. And my other expectation was just that this was going to be a really just cozy time because honestly, Mr. Pandaria is probably my biggest like WoW regret since, you know, I completely kind of missed out on it. I was not a big fan of the whole panda thing. I don't think really many people were, and the aesthetic, it just really didn't tell me anything. And then I say like talk to me in any way, it didn't appeal to me. And then also just coming from like Cataclysm, I was just burned out at that time, so I decided to just take a break from like the whole expansion. I think I came back when Siege of Orgrimmar was like, you know, about to release. I had just like released, simply just because I thought the idea of like raiding in Orgrimmar was the coolest thing I've ever heard about. And it's been like what, 11 years, 12 years since Mr. Pandaria had come out, like, and I'm still waiting for the Stormwind raid. So besides getting a lot of characters up to max level, I also just thought that this would be a great way to go back and actually take my time and experience the Mr. Pandaria leveling experience. While also getting new and cool systems like the gems and like all the mount and transmog vendors that's like, you know, really gonna like give me a new experience here. With like a lot of cool and accessible like rewards. Now it's been almost a week since the launch, and I'm actually still not at max level, which I will talk about, you know, later in the video. But I was really like, you know, conflicted with this mob remix because I think there's a lot of great things about this, and I've had such like the first couple of days so much fun and just being completely addicted to the game again. In a completely new way, or like not a new way, but like in a way that I haven't had like experienced in a very long time. But now that like a few more days has gone by, more cracks in the armor is like starting to show up, and like more like weaker points of this gameplay experience is kind of like, you know, being highlighted here. And I kind of just want to talk a little bit about like, you know, what has been working out for me, what really hasn't, what I thought was really fun, what like hooked me, and then also just kind of what drove me away, and just talk a little bit about my journey through, well, the Mr. Pandaria remix. There's no reason for denial here. One of the coolest, like, not only like WoW experiences, but like in general, like in gaming, one of the coolest things that you can be part of is the launch of a new expansion. And with all these new people like running around here in the Pandaria and stuff like that, and like reliving this old content, it just really just feels like a beginning of a new like expansion. And there are just some special like magic to that. You feel much more connected to the world, and like through that, you know, much easier to like kind of get like immersed in the world where you are, like in the land in Pandaria. And we're playing an MMO. Like, we like to play with other people, even though there might be some tagging issues or like some loot issues and whatever. But it's just, in general, it's just cool to see the whole kind of like community like come together. And just, you know, in general, throughout Mr. Pandaria, leveling has been absolutely great. I remember during Shadowlands, there was a lot of forum posts about asking Blizzard to bring the narrative setting like back down to Azeroth. Like, instead of this like, you know, galactical like foes and villains that we are fighting, we rather just, you know, be fighting bandits and like helping farmers and just going down like to really the roots and like just being like an adventurer. And in a lot of those posts, Mr. Pandaria was always highlighted as the expansion where like, look, you did it here and it was really great. And it's really true. Like, it's funny because like I actually felt like Dragonflight was very much like going down to the roots and like, you know, being just an adventurer and not like this huge champion or whatever. But like Mr. Pandaria just like kind of takes that to a whole nother level. You do have the like introduction scenarios where you are like, you know, part of the Horde and the Alliance army like infiltrating or like invading Pandaria, but it honestly just feels more like you're a soldier than like the whole general. And then when you do actually get a little bit further ahead, you are just helping out farmers and just, you know, taking care of the wildlife and making sure that just everything is kind of nice and yeah, it's really slow. But it does has like build up to these like huge shower fights and bosses you will see. So it's not like it's completely like missing these big elements, but it's really compared to other WoWs like storyline, especially like the future ones. Yeah, it's really much like it's slow on the slower end here. And if there's like one thing this is just like caused, it's just that leveling has just been absolutely cozy. Getting away from Mythic Plus score and just leaderboards and having to push every, like making sure that every week is like highly optimized so you get the most amount of score and stuff like that. It's been such a breath of fresh air, just to be able to just take my own time, just go back and like having no rush and just being able to level. And you know, this is something WoW has been criticized by a lot, and I think it's a fair criticism. It's the fact that like all the quests are basically just kill or collect quest, which, you know, Mr. Pandaria really highlights that yeah, like 99% of all you're doing is gonna be killing or collecting, right? But for me, that always has just opened up to the other side of WoW, where on one side you do have the your Mythic Plus, the Mythic rating, you know, the really high-end content where you really have to focus and think very long and hard about like what your class can bring to the other and like how you can optimize all that. And on the other side of the WoW game, you have the game where it's just you can completely shut off your brain and just watch like numbers and pretty colors. And while I do prefer the higher end like content and the more like when the game actually asks more of you, I can't deny that like I am also just completely smitten by just being able to completely turn your brain off, going on autopilot and just level up and grind away and do a bunch of like, you know, quests. And I think it's back in Cataclysm they started doing a lot of like voice acting in the quest, but like Mr. Pandaria just really highlights like, I think this is like where they really started to like home in on the voice acting, and that's great because that just means that it's easier to follow along and like what's happening when you just are not reading quest chat, like quest text, sorry, because you know, I accept a quest and I'm already like where the marker is telling me to go. I don't have time to like read everything. But the other thing is also, I completely forgot how funny Mr. Pandaria just is.
When I done fighting, went up to Kieran to ask for my reward.
Rico, you saved my life.
So, can Rico get kissed?
Of course. Let me just take off my mask.
What the ook is wrong with your face? You chicken dead? I on way, Kieran, and I don't care about your weird dead face.
So another thing that has made this event just extremely enjoyable has been the gem system. Now, gear drops in Mr. Pandaria remakes don't actually always have stats on them. Instead, they always have like socket that you can put gems into. Gems that you just get from basically doing anything in the game. And you can have like different like class abilities, and they give you like a bunch of buffs and just it's a lot of procs, and you can have like a bunch of different combinations, and you can make like really powerful builds and all that. And I so much want this in like retail because I think it's so much fun, it's so creative, and you can like get really crazy with the ideas here. I just don't see how you can implement like an infinite like scaling thing where you can just keep on getting more and more gems that like gives you like increased power, because we kind of gone like down that road before with like Legion artifact weapons and just BFA like Azerite gear and stuff like that, you know, and that didn't really work out that great. I would like in an ideal world we could have this system in retail WoW, and you would be able to get these really cool gems. So like on my Death Knight, I had like one moment where I had like 4 or 5 different shields going that like each had their own effect on the attacker. Meaning that like as soon as I got like just one hit in, like someone like punched me or did anything to me, just looked at me the wrong way, I would just instantly pop like these 5 elemental shit like and just see these bright colors light up on my screen. I've also tried working with like some like kind of like fire incendiary build where I have the fire shield, I have the meteors like falling down. Like if you attack me, I will pulsate fire damage, and I also just have a chance to like do fires on my attack. Or like the one that's been really crazy on my Blood Death Knight. UX is like gem that I found really late in my journey here that makes it so every time I press attack ability, I will also like throw out between 5 to 7 auto attacks, and my auto attacks have a chance to increase my my energy or like my rune power. So I was just like, at a time where I was like really rune stuffed, I was just swimming in them. So absolutely great form of system here where you have like all these interesting choices. There's a surprisingly amount of gems here. I think I'm starting to see like most of them, but like just like through how many gems have dropped and like for how many hours I've played, I think honestly it's quite a significant amount. And when you can like see your gear, like, I mean, you're getting like gear with more and more sockets, you start to see that you can like put even more on it and get even crazier. In theory, I think this system is absolutely excellent. The only issue I have with it, like on its own, is simply just that, first of all, like I see a lot of people complain about your bags getting filled up. I don't think it's that bad if you just, but you kind of have to organize it as you go. You can't just ignore your bag, because then you will get absolutely overwhelmed. And the other thing is, and I think this is like spaghetti code, the socket system in WoW, and I also just hate this in retail. It's just there's so many unnecessary clicks instead of just being able to equip it and like press it onto the item you have. You have to first like go like in your character panel, open up the item, click on the socket, and then drag it over. You can just like right click again. It's kind of convoluted, and I'm assuming it has to be like spaghetti code, like if they like remove like they add a right click on sockets, then all of a sudden like Durotar is just gone. But I think it's like for an event like this, I think it's great to have a sort of power that just like you always get something, and you can always go in and like grind some more and just get some more if that's what you want to do. Now the other compliment I really want to give the remix here is just thank you Blizzard for getting Transmog and mounts so incredibly easy and like straightforward. Now, I'm not really a huge mount guy, I never really have been. I mean, I like cool mounts, but I don't really care about rarity. I just really only care about aesthetically. So I've never really chased like really rare mounts, because they always seem like... I'm not really interested in going into the same raid every week just for like a 1% chance of something that I might or might not like actually, put on or like use. But I care a lot about Transmog. I care a lot about Transmog. And I honestly, again, I didn't really do that much research going into Mr. Pandaria, because I kind of wanted to like go in kind of blind. I kind of expected that like somehow if you wanted to get Transmog, you had to like go and do the raids. I didn't expect them to just put down a vendor or like multiple vendors. They're just like, yeah, here is like the mythic and heroic colors, here the normal, and here the LFR colors. Just go and buy them. And the last thing I expected was them to be like super cheap. And I have to be honest here, like I see like on the, and you get to like the negatives here, I've seen like a lot of posts about like how much it costs if you want to upgrade your gear, and this is very like something you do if you have max level. And it's like around 500,000 like bronze, like the currency that you get, which is a fairly like a big amount. And I have to be honest, like if you wanted to like optimize, you definitely want to like save your bronze for that, but I don't care about that, and that's also what we'll get into later. I just really want the Transmog, so I had just been spending like, every time I get 5,000 bronze, I just went over and bought a Transmog, and it basically it's almost like every other hour, I have like 5,000 like with the questing and just dungeons and just doing your dailies. Yeah, you can get like a Transmog set, two Transmog sets a day or something like that. So yeah, maybe not every other hour, but you can at least get like a few sets a day. That's really cool, and also just the fact that you can just buy them in any character. You don't actually have to be a mage to buy the mage Transmog set. You can do it on any character, and that's wonderful. And now that kind of opens up to my biggest problem with Mr. Pandaria Remix. And it mostly comes from like a personal preference kind of thing, but it does, like gameplay here does like affect my decision and like my enjoyment of the experience here, the event. Basically, what's happened is I reached level, I think it's 38 on my DK, and I also made an evoker to heal and do some DPS with. And just a little side note, it definitely is a lot more fun to play as a DPS or a healer. Tanking with all the scaling in the dungeon and stuff like that it's really gruesome. If you're playing a tank, you gotta get ready for like aggro issues and just being like randomly one-shotted. Now I'm also playing a DK that like doesn't, like for most of my playthrough, did not have like most of my defensives. But like still, it's like, even I've also heard it like on other tanks that like there are just different mobs that will just like kind of just hit you extremely hard out of nowhere. But I played a fair bit, and I kind of reached a point now where I kind of realized that there isn't really, like, I'm playing a lot, like the leveling is not really as fast as I thought it would be. I am convinced that it's not only is it as fast as retail, I am convinced that retail is definitely faster because, for example, dungeons and raids just don't really give you any XP. Like, if you get the daily, you get some out of that, but like in general, like questing is going to be the fastest way to go. And as I mentioned before, I very distinctively did not try not to call questing like, you know, fun. Some quests can be fun, and like turning your brain off can be fun, but like where my like biggest enjoyment of WoW comes from is from like 5-man group content. So dungeons just not being very efficient outside of a daily, and also just the more I played it, just less enjoyable with, as I mentioned before, the whole scaling. And that I think that is a tank issue, because now that I played it on my evoker, it's a lot more enjoyable. But that could also just be because, like, I mean, evoker is stupidly broken in the scaling right now in Remix. And like that's the thing about questing. Questing is cozy for me. It's nice. It's like putting on a warm blanket and stuff like that. But I also do get kind of like tired of it, especially if I have to level at this pace that I am leveling it. I'm like, again, I'm not max level. I am assuming that, like, you know, the more XP bonus that you actually get on your cloak, that the end levels will actually feel faster, and that's where, like, you know, it will pick up before like pick up over retail in terms of like speed. But like from the community, like on Reddit and just forum posts that I've heard of, like it's not like it's gonna be that much faster. So the main reason to like play Remix is basically out the window for me, because like, you know, I was supposed to do this basically to level it. I'm still gonna hit max level at some point. I just might not just do it with every single tank. I might just level a tank through retail. And then there's the other realization that just like really saddened me and really, like, you know, it just sucks. It's basically just that I realized that I'm not gonna like go hard on raids, because again, as I mentioned before, I'm more into dungeons than I'm into raids. I think raids are like too many people and I have like too little influence kind of thing. And also I'm playing a tank and I'm trying getting into raid tanking, but I still just, every single time I'm, you know, playing a raid, I would rather just play a DPSer. So I'm most likely just gonna switch over to my evoker and just like do some raids there, but I'm not really interested in committing anything like particularly like more than maybe a normal raid. And I just don't think raids have the same repetibility that a dungeon has. So as soon as I've seen the raid like once or twice, that's also the like content for me. Then I know with myself, like I'm just gonna like lose interest. So I was like hitting level 37, and I kind of hit me with the realization that like I'm playing a lot and I'm grinding a lot of like gems and getting the right builds for basically no content when I hit max level, or like no content that I'm like interested in, because as I mentioned before, the dungeons just it just is not really that like rewarding to go through, and there's not really anything to drive you to go to it as soon as you actually hit max level and you get the gear that you need. So that sucks, because like Remix has like a really interesting loot treadmill that like gives you power through the gems. You just don't really have any incentive to go on, or like I don't have any incentive to go on that like treadmill. And again, from the community and forum posts, I just heard that the leveling experience is the most fun as soon as you hit max level. it's honestly a drag having to like really farm out, especially also now because the whole controversy with the frogs they were supposed to farm, but now they nerfed it, but they haven't taken back people's power or given the people who haven't been able to farm the frogs any power. So now there's just this huge gap in player power, just if you did the farm or not. So like it's also incredibly like imbalanced in the end game. It just honestly, what it did, it just made me want to play retail. So I actually went back and I just decided to play like Blood Death Knight in like Mythic Plus, because that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to just take these gems, these builds that I come up with, and put them into a system like Mythic Plus. And like that's the thing, right? Because I was looking back at this, it would have been such a great idea just to like have them implement, because we already had like some Mr. Pandaria dungeons as Mythic Plus dungeons, so I don't think it would be huge of like a gap to like implement some kind of like endgame Mythic Plus system into this, like where you could like test out your builds and stuff like that. Instead, the way I'm looking at it is the game is asking me to go on this like really intensive grind that doesn't really have any like place to be. Like as soon as you actually hit the place that you want to, like as soon as you hit the capstones and you hit the max like whatever eye level is, it's not really any content to that like I'm interested in doing. So yeah, I'm doing this for the questing of Mr. Pandaria, and I'm definitely doing it for all the Transmog. I'm still playing, I'm still doing my dailies because I need the bullions, but I don't really care getting a max level. I don't really care about the gear that I'm getting, because as I mentioned more and more, like it's just kind of pointless to me, which really sucks. And it really made me like ponder, what did I do like back here when like Mythic Plus wasn't a thing? Like how did I actually play like World of Warcraft? And I actually remember that this is how I played. I would level a character, get them to max level, and then as soon as I hit a point where like, okay, if I wanted to like proceed with my character, I actually had to do some like hard commit more to raiding and like get into a raid team, and then I stopped and I leveled a new character, and that's how I did it all the way up into like BFA. And that's just absolutely crazy to me, because how like just now with Mythic Plus in the game and like how much I'm actually playing it and like, enjoying the game, it's crazy to me like that just didn't exist, and I still spent so much time in this game. Just kind of shows you how amazing the universe and the classes are, right? But yeah, I mean that's been my like Mr. Pandaria remix. It's been some amazing couple of first days here, and really enjoying the zone and the music. Oh, the music! But it just kind of fell flat at the end. I just kind of like the fire just kind of burned out, and I think that's also just what the event is for. Like, you know, you play it until you get tired of it and you put it down. It's just, unfortunately for me, that's way earlier than I probably thought it would be. Still on here, still doing some dailies, getting that transmog, but yeah. I guess Mr. Pandaria Remix was just not for me, unfortunately. But I hope you guys are enjoying it way more, or just I hope you guys are still playing it and still having fun. Else not, I guess I'll just see you in Mythic Plus and Retail. Okay guys, take care.